I don't know what happened. It was like divine intervention. But I called over his agent. Don't know why I did that. And he was like, hey, what's up? And I was like, are you his agent? And he was like, yeah. And I was like, I have a business idea for you. And he's like, okay, you have 30 seconds to pitch me. Go. Pitched him. And now I work with LAROI. So it's very much so what you just said. Some things you don't understand why they happen, but they're just meant to happen.
Olivia Levin, welcome to From Vision to Creation. Thank you so much for taking the time to do this with me today.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to chat.
I'm so excited that you're here because your story is quite literally the ethos of the show, from vision to creation. What you've been able to build through your community is insane.
Thank you.
I'm so happy that you're here, and I just can't wait to dive into your journey because it's been a wild one. And I really just want to go into your perspective throughout the entire thing and the lessons that you've learned building such a loyal community.
Yeah, let's dive in.
Let's talk about Swifties for Eternity. It was a Tumblr account that you created when you were 13 years old.
Yep.
When you created it, what was the motivating force behind that? I know you were obviously a Taylor Swift fan, but what made you say hey, I want to create this community where I can connect with other Swifties?
So, I was 13 years old. So that's, I'm 26 now. It's a long time ago. So I've tried to reflect on, why I started it. And I think the answer that comes to mind every time is just that no one in my real life was a Swiftie. No one really around me cared about music all that much. And I really, at that point in my life, started to love music and became super passionate about it. And then I found Taylor's music. So I think looking back, what did it for me was, well, number one, Taylor was on Tumblr. And I know I had heard about that. And I was like, oh, that's so cool. Okay, that must be where the fans hang out. And then I think I was just yearning for a community. And I found it on there and on Instagram. And it was cool. I felt like I had a double life a little bit. The people and my friends in real life were so different than the people I connected with online. And we bonded over very different things. So I probably would say, I think I just yearned for community and, knowing that Taylor Swift was on there too and thinking, oh, maybe I could interact with her. She would like my posts. That was definitely a driving force when I was 13, 14 years old.
Well, so you started this account and then she did start interacting with you and liking your posts and even DM'd you.
Yeah.
How long after starting the account did she see you on there?
So I think she followed me on Tumblr in 2015. It was probably a little over a year after I started my fan account. And that was, peak for me. I thought that was my goal. It was get Taylor Swift to follow me on Tumblr because she followed some other fans that had been around longer. So I remember the day that happened. It was the summer of 2015. And yeah, she started liking my posts here and there. Some had to do with her. Some were completely unrelated to her. I remember this one post where I said I was on my way to a tennis lesson or something, and she liked that. So it was cool to see her interact with things that weren't always about her. It made it very authentic. And by the time I was 17, I was a senior in high school in 2017, October. Taylor found my Instagram account, which had the same username, so she probably knew it from Tumblr, and DM'd me on there. And fast forward 10 days and I was in her living room.
Let's talk about that. That's the first chapter of your book, which is so well written, by the way.
Thank you.
It's the story of us. Everyone, if you haven't read it, if you're a Taylor Swift fan or not even, just want to learn about building community, such a good read.
Thank you.
So tell us about that.
Yeah.
Taylor DMs you.
Yeah, Taylor DMs me just a smiley face emoji, which I think that was her way of Easter egging, oh, I'm going to get an invite to her house. And a couple days later, I get a message from her team, and it was confidential message. We want some more information about you, how old you are, where you live, and all that. And your phone number. And I got a call, I want to say the day after, and it was someone from her team saying, hey, Olivia, Taylor saw how big of a fan you are, and you've been so supportive. She wants to invite you to a private event on Thursday. And this was a Friday, so 6 days later. And she was like, it's going to be in Rhode Island. I can email you all the details if you're interested. And I obviously freaked out. And I was like, can I bring my mom? And they were like, yeah. And I don't know if everyone got plus ones or if it was just because I was under the age of 18. I can't really remember. But yeah. And so I fast forward 6 days later and I was in Taylor Swift's living room hanging out with her parents, her brother, her, and some other Swifties from online. It was so surreal.
And you talk about how the beach that's visible from her house,
Yeah.
you would frequent growing up because you
Yeah.
lived in the area.
Yeah.
And now suddenly, you know, when you were a kid, you would look up and you say, there's Taylor's house.
Yeah.
And then suddenly the perspective totally shifted. You were looking
Yeah.
down at the beach.
Yeah.
What was that moment like?
Oh my God. I remember that moment. You know, those moments that you just know you'll remember forever, like a very specific scene in your head. That one I will remember forever, just sitting on or standing on the balcony with some other Swifties and talking to Scott Swift, Taylor's dad. And I was looking over out at the beach and I'm like, oh my God, the amount of times that I've done like day trips right on that beach and looked up. So yeah, I'm really happy I included that in chapter 1 because that moment definitely stuck with me. And it's so cool. It was such a full circle moment, you know? So it was crazy that a fan account led me to there. And little did I know it would lead me to so many other things down the road.
And that day, you guys got to listen to Reputation.
Yeah.
You're some of the first people in the world to hear it.
Yeah, we were. It was about 3.5 weeks before the album came out, I think. And Taylor went through every song and explained what she wrote each one about. And she had disappeared for a while from the public eye and the media post, Snake Gate cancellation, the Kanye Kim stuff. And so she had been away for a year and the fans didn't even know if she would come back to music. So it was really cool that the way she came back, she chose to be with the fans and not do some big, publicity thing with the media. So it was super intimate and she kind of just told us stories and caught us up on her life. And then we each had one-on-one time with her. And she also sang All Too Well on the piano. That's another moment I'll never forget. I was right next to her while she was singing All Too Well, and we all joined in and sang with her about halfway through the song. It was crazy.
Wow, that is such a cool moment.
Yeah.
You started this fan account prior to this experience. It led you to her house, which is amazing. And I think that also really speaks to who Taylor is as a person and how, important it is for her to connect with her fans.
Yeah.
What do you think that experience did for you as the creator of this account? Did it change your approach to the work at all?
I don't think it did at the time. I think it gave me more of, let's say, people trusted me more as a source because Taylor was now in my profile picture with me, It was like a stamp of approval having a photo with Taylor. And all the fan accounts, all the fans that would meet her, they would all change their profile photos to the picture of them and Taylor. So it was cool to kind of join that cool club. But no, I kind of just kept doing the same thing throughout high school and college after I met her. And I never thought it would guide my career. I never thought it would become a way of making money. That was never ever in the back of my mind. So I get that question a lot. It's like, did you think that it would one day lead to, being a big part of your job? No.
Well, let's talk about that too, because you actually have a really cool story about that as well. I know you were working a job that you felt was soul crushing.
Yeah.
And you had even expressed to your mom saying, Mom, I can't do this anymore. Like everything else in my life is great. My job is what takes up the majority of my life. So I'm miserable.
Yep.
Can you tell us what happened with that?
So after college, I moved to Nashville and I had a remote job at this, very ironic, but a small book publishing company. And yeah, I was miserable. I woke up every day and I was like, ugh, I hate my job. And honestly, they barely gave me work to do. I just felt very bored and unfulfilled. And I'm someone who gets a lot of purpose from the work that I do. So if I'm not liking the work that I do, I feel purposeless. So my mom was visiting me in Nashville and yeah, I told her, I was like, I really want to quit. It had been about 5 months maybe. And she was like, stick it out another 6 months. It looks better on a resume if you're somewhere for a year instead of job hopping. And I was like, okay, I'll try. And the next day my mom left town and I got on a call and they were like, we're cutting your department, like we're laying you off. And I was like, wow. I mean, I asked for it. I was shocked that it happened because it's always easier to leave than for someone to be like, you're essentially fired or laid off. But I don't think I would have left on my own, you know? So I think it was such a blessing in disguise that happened. And then it allowed me to spend so much more time to focus on my fan account. And that's actually when everything shifted, because I really started to put my own personality into the account and my face on there so much more than I did before, because I had a lot more time on my hands.
That's really interesting because you've had this account for a long time at this point. When you were laid off, was it like that day where they like, this is your last day, or did they give you like 2 weeks? Or
I think I like finished out that week, maybe, if that. It could have been my last day. I actually don't remember. I like blocked that part of my life out because a few weeks later, my dog died. And so I was just like, it was just a terrible time for me at that summer. I look back on it, I'm like, wow, thank God I've moved past that and grown from it. But that was a rough summer, and I was looking for other jobs. And I couldn't, none of the 9-to-5 jobs that I was applying to and interviewing for excited me at all. I did make it to the final round interview at this label in Nashville, and that one I was like a little more excited about, but just the idea of working for someone, doing things that I'm told to do rather than doing what I want to do, I never liked that concept. So I remember later that summer, my account had started to blow up, and I was waiting to hear back from that label if I got the job or not after like 4 rounds of interviews. And one day I just called my parents and I was like, you know what? I haven't heard back from them. I think I'm just going to stop looking for a corporate job, and I'm going to take an online copywriting course, build my own freelance copywriting business, and do that and see if it works. And my parents they're entrepreneurs through and through. So they were like so supportive, go for it. So I did that. I decided to do that, and I took the course. Eventually I had a client, and at the same time I met my now brand partnerships agent who's in LA when I was in LA. She was this big Swiftie. We connected. She was like, let's meet up. We met up. And she was like, let me like rep you and get you brand deals. And I was like, you think that's going to work? And she was like, well, let's try it. I mean, you started putting your face on the account, so it's like part influencer now. So let's see how it goes. And we started doing it, and I started making so much more money than I ever did in corporate. And I stopped doing the copywriting because I didn't have to anymore. And that's when social media became my full-time job.
Wow. And see, that's really cool. And I feel like there's a lot of interest around this now, especially because a lot of people want to make social media their full-time job.
Yeah.
What do you think is a common misconception? Like, what do people not see when that is your full-time job?
Yeah. I mean, I would say the number one thing is there can be a stretch of 2 months where you get no brand deals and you're not making money. So that's stressful for a lot of creators. I knew that during the Eras tour, I was safe because I was getting brand deals left and right. But I was like, okay, anything can change at any moment. Once the Eras tour is over, am I going to be, doing as many brand deals? Probably not. I'm going to have to figure something else out. So there's always the stress, and your account could get taken down, So there's always the stress of, is this permanent or not? And every month looks different. You can have a great month and you think it's going to keep going in that direction. And then you could have a really, shitty month.
And so what advice would you give to somebody who wants to pursue social media as a full-time career, where they can build some stability and consistency? Like, are there any methods that you think work better than others? Or is it kind of just left to chance depending on the brands that are looking to make deals?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I would say think outside the box in terms of what brands you can pitch yourself to and do outreach to. Because if you're only thinking very narrowly at, what kind of content do I produce and what brands would, align with my followers and stuff like that, it's very hard. So for example, I have a Taylor Swift fan account. If I was only looking at brands that were perfect for my audience, then I would struggle to find a lot of brands to work with. But what we ended up doing was pitching ourselves to I did a brand partnership with Sweet Lauren's, the gluten-free cookie. And people are like, okay, how is that Swiftie related? But you can make anything related to your audience. So what I did with that is I did a Super Bowl, like make cookies for the Super Bowl, and the Chiefs were in the Super Bowl. So I think my number one piece of advice would be think outside the box in terms of how you can connect something to your audience that you may not think of it just by looking at the brand, but you can always think outside the box and just figure out how you can tie them together, because there's always a way.
Well, Olivia, I feel that your experience building what you have, you've actually built a very strong foundation in a space where anybody can use the skills that you've acquired over the years. Because yes, it was a Taylor Swift fan account, but what you were really doing was building community and understanding how social media worked and how you can monetize that while still staying authentic to who you are and your mission. Have you ever thought about starting a business, like offering that as a service to other artists?
I haven't thought exactly about doing that, but everybody I feel like has a course nowadays. So it has crossed my mind. Like I feel like I have good advice to give. And I could create a course, but I don't ever want to do something just as a way to make money. I want to do something that I really feel passionate about. So the way I've kind of taken my skill set is I now work with an artist, the Kid LAROI, and I kind of take everything that I've learned from running my fan account and everything I've learned from watching Taylor and her team, do their marketing strategy on social media. And I just apply it to building his fan base and really cultivating his fan base. So I guess in a way that's how I've done it.
Yeah, no, and that's actually exactly what I was asking, because what you've learned how to do is huge. Like even the big companies like the Lululemons, Nikes of the world, like it's all about world building, community building. And you quite literally started when you were 13 years old.
Yeah.
Half of your life ago.
I know. It's crazy. And it was so unintentional. But I think that's when you really find your passion. You do something without ever thinking that you'll make a dime off of it, because you just like to do it. And then, I don't know, at least for me, I think it was partly, I don't know if you believe in the law of attraction, but I feel like I unintentionally manifested what happened, but it happened so organically. And I think that's the best way, because you're not forcing anything. I think sometimes when you put all your eggs in one basket and you're like, this has to work, I need to make money from it, you sometimes start to lose the passion aspect too.
It's so funny that you say that. I read a book a long time ago called Big Magic by Elizabeth Gilbert, the author of Eat, Pray, Love.
Oh.
And she talks about her creative process. And one thing that she said in the book that has stayed with me is you need to be able to work hard so that you can play lightly in your passion. Because the second you start to put that pressure on your passion, like I have to make money doing this, you're totally, to your point, it's totally true. Like it robs you of the joy and the passion because suddenly you're not doing it for fun anymore.
Yeah. Yeah.
And one thing that I'm also finding really interesting about this too is that it sounds like through building this fan account, and it's almost like the fan account kind of guided you in a way.
Yeah.
Right? Like it was like your North Star in a sense, even though you maybe didn't realize at the time that when you were let go from your job and looking for other jobs, maybe you didn't realize that this could be your day job, but like still you knew that something didn't feel right. And back to your question of, do you believe in the law of attraction? I believe in it in the sense that if you're taking action towards something, you're planting seeds, and I do believe that they take root. And sometimes those little seeds that you plant, they find you before you find them.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. That is a great way to put it. Yeah, I mean, you can't just sit down and think things into existence. You have to put in the work. And then, I believe if it's meant to be and you put in the work, then it'll just work. But yeah, I just remember that summer after I got laid off, I had an epiphany and I was like, you know what? I need to start putting my face out there on the page. I didn't want it to just be another faceless fan account. And I don't even think at that point, I didn't know that I would ever do brand deals or anything like that. So I don't really know where that came from. I guess it's just like what was meant to happen. But I knew that putting your face out there as part of the page, it builds a different kind of relationship with your audience, you know? And looking back now, I'm like, you really need that if to work with brands to convert into sales and stuff. Brands want you to have a presence with your face attached to it. Otherwise, people aren't going to trust you as much.
Well, and Taylor Swift, in your case, she changed your life. She touched you in a way that maybe no other artist did, especially during your earlier years. People can see themselves in you, right? And so you're totally right. Like putting your face out there was obviously the right next move. And what I think it was intuition.
Yeah, you're probably right. It probably was. My body knew before my mind knew.
Yes.
Yeah.
And isn't it funny how like when you make certain choices, even when there's no evidence to back it up or you have no idea what's going to happen, you know when something's right for you.
Yeah, 100%. Have you felt that in your life?
Oh yeah, absolutely. With this podcast,
Yeah.
actually. Yeah, I started it as a total passion project, as a way to just like meet new people, but it's turned into something else entirely.
Yeah.
So yeah, like absolutely. And it's funny because when I started this, a lot of my friends who've known me my whole life were like, well, Alexander, this is what you've always wanted to do. And I was like, oh yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Like I did. I would always say like, I remember being in middle school and watching Chelsea Lately and being like, I want to have a talk show, but
Yeah.
it just felt so like, it didn't feel like real in a sense.
Yeah.
But so to answer your question,
Yeah.
yes.
So it kind of found you. Yeah.
And one thing that I really want to talk to you about that I think is really cool is you were helping people during the Eras tour secure tickets at not those insane prices that people were reselling
At
them
face value.
for.
Yeah.
Yes. How did you identify that this was not only a problem, but one that you could solve?
So, I mean, we all knew it was a problem by then. The second the tickets went on sale for the Eras tour, I remember I was in Florida walking around with my family and I was like, oh my God, all the tickets sold in the pre-sale, or they canceled the general sale because the pre-sale, they sold too many tickets, something like that. And then all of a sudden, everything was on StubHub and stuff for thousands of dollars. I had never seen that in my life. I grew up going to Taylor's shows and I would always be on the floor. I would go to so many shows. I'd be front row and I was paying like $200, maybe $300 max. So I was like, oh my God, I've never seen this before. What is this? Is this how it's going to be? And then I was struggling to get tickets for like my family and I to go see shows. And I'm used to going to so many shows with friends. So I was like, okay, it's going to be different. For the majority, I guess, of the Eras tour, I was helping people get face value tickets for free. People would message me and be like, hey, Olivia, I have extra tickets or I can't make it anymore. I want another Swiftie to get these tickets at face value, no upcharge. Can you help me? So I started posting them on my Instagram stories. And after verifying the tickets, making sure it was legit, and then I would pick random people that wanted the tickets and I would connect the buyer and the seller in a group chat and kind of monitor the whole group chat and the sale and everything. And then, I had no job. I needed to make money. I was like, okay, I didn't even come up with part of the idea myself. I got approached by a subscription platform that was basically like, hey, Olivia, we want you to make exclusive content on our platform or post exclusive content on our platform. I was like, okay, well, I'm not out here posting selfies of myself on there. No one's going to pay for that. I'm not interested in that. I don't want to make any of my Taylor Swift updates exclusive content either. So I was like, how can I even use this platform? At first I was like, okay, I don't think it's a good fit. Like, I don't know what I'm going to do with it. And then I just had this epiphany one day and I was like, I'm getting so many ticket submissions now that it's taking up so much of my time. Why don't I start posting those tickets on the subscription platform and I'll charge like $3-4 a month. And, whoever wants to subscribe can, and whoever doesn't have to. And so I started doing that for the last bit of the Eras tour. And that's when I started getting even more ticket submissions. I started this whole Google form and went through the whole verification process. And then, did the same kind of thing. I would pick people randomly, put them in the group chat with the seller, and then make sure they were using the right, PayPal goods and services so you can't get scammed doing one ticket at a time. And I would just make sure everything went smoothly. And, I was providing a service, but I get some people had a lot to say about it.
What do you mean they had a lot to say about it?
I remember getting texts from people like, "You're kind of getting canceled on Twitter right now." And I was like, "Oh, why?" And they're like, "Because people think you should be doing your ticket stuff for free." And I was like, ugh, if I were a man. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, that like, it would make sense to me. And by the way, $3 to $4 a month, geez, like you're just like saying like you're doing a good thing and you're just trying to make it sustainable.
Right. And I'm trying to help more people and knowing I'm going to get more submissions from like starting to make it an official thing. And I couldn't do it without all the fans who were just all the Swifties are such good people. And they're like, "I want another Swiftie to have it, But yeah, I did it for free most of the tour. And then I was like, okay, I can't, it's not sustainable. So I either stop doing it or I find a way to keep doing it. And I did, and people got pissed, but that's the name of the game. It's how it goes.
You know what I'm finding really amazing about your story though, Olivia, seriously?
What?
You're not just a Taylor Swift super fan, although I'm sure you're that too, right?
Yeah, but it's evolved. Like, of course, I'll always be like a Taylor Swift super fan, but the way I idolized her when I was 14, 15, 16, very different than right now. I would say at 26 years old, I respect her. I admire her, her work ethic. She's a marketing genius. I love her. She seems like an amazing person, but I wouldn't say I idolize her in the same way I did when I was a kid. And I think that just goes with growing older, but
yeah, but what's so cool is that because you idolized her early on in your life, she inspired you to find yourself and build a career. Like I've never heard of anyone else like having a story quite like yours. It's really interesting.
It is. I just have these random thoughts sometimes. I'm like, I cannot believe that my fan account turned into a book, working with other artists and all this stuff. It's all because of that. And I remember when I was, 14, 15 on Tumblr all the time, my mom was like, what are you doing on that all the time? Like, what is it going to do for you? And I was like, if only I knew what was going to happen.
Yeah, see, it's not kids spending time on social media. It isn't always a bad thing, although it can be.
It can be, but in my case, it was worth it.
I want to challenge you on something that you just said a second ago, though.
Okay.
You were saying that you can't believe that just from your Tumblr account that it turned into all these things. Like, I'm going to challenge you because it didn't just turn into all these things. You did it. Like, you had a vision and you made it happen.
Yes, you're partly right, but I don't know. Sometimes I'm just like, I think I got really lucky, but I don't know. I guess I should give myself some credit, but I also picked the perfect person to start a fan account for, because had it been for anyone else, I don't think it would have led to anything like this. So it's a testament to, how big she is and how many people she's inspired in her lifetime.
And a testament to your eye for greatness.
I guess so. I guess I picked a good one.
You did. You picked a good one. And let's talk about creating the book, because writing a book and then getting it published, that's no easy feat. What did you think writing a book was going to be like, and how was it different?
That's a good question. No one's asked me that before. So I've always wanted to write a book. It's always been a bucket list item for me. Didn't think it would ever be about this, but this is even better. I don't know if I knew how it was going to be. I think I went into it with zero expectations. I had no idea what it would be like. I knew a little bit of what the book publishing world was like from having briefly worked at a book publishing company, but I never really got to see the ins and outs. I really was separated from it and told to just do the social media stuff. So I would say I went in with no expectations, but I learned a lot from it. And there were tough times during it, stressful times during it, but I would do it all over again. I would love to write another book one day. I think it would be so fun. So I'm really happy that I enjoyed the process looking back. I would say the most stressful parts about it were the book cover. because one, that's the first thing everybody sees, you know, and that's going to live on forever. You can't change it. And two, I wanted to really like it. And the stressful part about that was going back and forth with you as the author do not get to directly communicate with the people designing the book cover. So it's all through my editor. So I would tell her, this is what I want, and she would relay what I would say. And, you know, we probably went back and forth at least 10 times, and they probably were so annoyed with me. But I wanted it to be perfect. I had a vision for the cover, and it's not what was done in the first 10-ish rounds. So that was a stressful part, really knowing to stand my ground because I tend to be a people pleaser. I'm like, oh yeah, like if you think it's good, it's good. But I knew for something like this that I was going to stand my ground. It didn't matter what I had to do. So I'm very proud of myself for doing that. And I would say the other hard part was just deadlines. Sometimes the editing process, those deadlines, you know, editing is actually maybe harder than actually writing the book. By the time you get to the end of the book, you feel like you're a better writer than when you started it because you've written so much. And you want the beginning to be as good as the end. So I found myself going back to the beginning chapters a lot and editing a lot more in those than I did in the ending chapters. So that part was stressful too, because I was like, I had deadlines to meet and I was like, wait, this needs to be perfect.
Oh, that's interesting. I've never heard anybody say that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I could totally see that. You would have so much more confidence. You know what your flow state is like when you're writing. By the time you reach the end, you go back to the beginning and you're like, who is this noob trying it out for the first time?
Yeah. And it was actually the same experience when I went into the studio to record the audiobook. I didn't know what to expect, had never done it before. And as you know, I kept doing chapter by chapter, I got more confident in the way I was reading the book and, you know, the enthusiasm and all the changes in my voice and all that. And so by the time I finished, I was like, can I redo the first couple chapters? And they were like, yeah, we have time, so let's do it. So, I mean, with anything, you know, practice makes perfect. So you gain confidence. It makes sense to kind of go back to the beginning, but it does make the editing a little bit harder.
There's a huge lesson right here. And it's that even if you don't have experience doing something, that does not mean you shouldn't start. Or that you can't go and like redo what you've done. Sometimes when you put something out there, it's out there and that's just that.
Yeah.
But I also think it's really cool for people to see artists put out their first work and then be able to see how far they've come.
Yeah, that's true. Maybe I should release what the first draft was.
Well, no, I think it's cool that like you're admitting to this.
Yeah.
Like, hey, I started this and I felt like I got better, so I went back and I re-edited it. And I think that it's important for people, especially young people or people who are doing things for the first time, to hear this, because I think that we get really bogged down by fear and we say like, I'm not, you know, I don't have what it takes. I've never done this. Who am I to write a book or to start a fan account or start a podcast? I've never done it, you know? But everybody has to start somewhere.
Yeah. And some people let fear take over their entire life and they never do anything that makes them uncomfortable. But that's how you grow. I remember after I got the book deal, I kind of had a mental breakdown. I was like, oh my God, okay, I have the book deal. I now need to write a book. And, you know, something I had never done before. It's very daunting to think, okay, I need to now write an entire book full of, you know, 13 plus chapters. How do I even begin to start? I'm so overwhelmed and I've never written a book and I haven't written in a long time because I had been out of school for a while. So, and I always knew I was a good writer and I liked to write, but I just remember sitting there and I'm like, oh my God. So what helped me was doing it like chapter by chapter. Stop focusing on the big picture, take it little by little. If you write a couple pages a day, then and then eventually just it'll build and you won't even see it happening until it's done. And that's kind of what happened.
That's actually really good life advice that can be applied to almost anything.
Yeah.
I have a question for you about fear.
Yeah.
But before I go into that, I want to ask you about landing the book deal. Like, at what point after deciding I want to write a book, did you land the book deal? And what was it like to get there?
So, like we talked about the law of attraction, manifesting, I feel like I kind of asked the universe for it because it was January 2024 And I texted my agent and I was like, I want to write a book. Didn't really know what about, but I was like, I want to write a book. And she was like, that's great. But you need a book agent. You need to write a book proposal. You need to get a book deal, all this stuff. And I was like, I should know that, but I don't. And I was like, you know what? Maybe this is something I'll revisit years down the line, maybe when I'm 30. At this point, I was still 23. And 3 days later, I'm on the phone with my agent and I get an email. And I was like, oh my God, you will not believe the email I just got. It was an email from a literary agent in Brooklyn, New York. And she was like, hey, Olivia, me and my husband run a literary agency out of Brooklyn. We read about you in an article and we have this book idea for Swifties and we think you'd be the perfect person to write it. And I was like, wow, okay. I was like, is this legit? Like, that's crazy timing. And I ended up meeting with them on Zoom, and I liked that they kind of let me, they wanted to let me take control and morph the idea into whatever I thought would be best for Swifties. And I was like, okay, I like that. I want creative control because that's where the passion comes in. And so that all happened January, February. I spent that spring writing a book proposal, which was about 30 pages, basically just summarizes what the book's going to be. And then they started pitching it to publishers. And within 2 weeks, I had a deal with Simon & Schuster. So I think that was May. I met with one other publisher, but I went with Simon & Schuster.
That is insane.
Isn't that insane?
Yeah, that's like crazy timing. That's like ask and you shall receive, guys. Seriously.
Yeah. But I mean, all the books about manifestation and stuff that I've read, they literally say you need to be very specific about what you want and put it out in the universe and ask for it. There's no harm in asking and then put in the work. But yeah.
I feel like those serendipitous moments, I feel like those are like, and I'm without getting too woo-woo about it, but like, I really do believe that that's God or the universe's way of just being like, hey, like you're on track. This is what you're meant to be doing. Yeah. Because yes, we choose certain things, but sometimes I really do believe that things choose us, like we discussed earlier.
1,000%. I could not agree more. And there's been other instances, like the way I started working with Kid LAROI was another instance where I feel like it just chose me. I went to an event that my friend told me to come to. He performed. I barely knew who he was. I knew a couple of his songs. And I ran into someone that I hadn't seen in years. And they were like, come with me. I'm going to ask LAROI if he wants to be on Theo Von's podcast because this guy is Theo Von's podcast producer. I was like, okay. So I went with him and LAROI was like, yeah, talk to my agent. And so I've just followed this guy and they exchange info and then he dips and leaves me and I'm at the front of the rope, like the VIP area. And I'm like, what am I doing here? And then I don't know what happened. It was like divine intervention, but I called over his agent. Don't know why I did that. And he was like, hey, what's up? And I was like, are you his agent? And he was like, yeah. And I was like, I have a business idea for you. And he's like, okay, you have 30 seconds to pitch me. Go. Pitched him. And now I work with LAROI. So it's very much so what you just said. Some things you don't understand why they happen, but they're just meant to happen.
Wait, Olivia, what's the pitch? Come on, give us the 30-second pitch.
The 30-second pitch. So I actually came up with it on the spot. But it was something about, you know how artists have HQ accounts? So it was something about that. And I told him about what I do with the Taylor Swift fan account. And I essentially pitched myself to run Kid LAROI's HQ, and now I do. I started it, and I currently run it.
That is another crazy story.
I know.
I love it, but you know what? The central theme here is that beyond just starting this account, you've put yourself out there, and and it sounds to me like you've had a lot of clarity about what it is that you want. Even though maybe for a little period of your life, and it's so funny because you're 26 years old, like you're just at the beginning already as it is, but like, even though maybe at the very beginning of your career or what you would consider like your official career, you had to learn what you didn't want in order to, land at this and what you really want to do, what you're really passionate about. But like, this story is huge because I can't even tell you how many people have come on the show and have said similar stories to where they're in the room with someone or they're in the car, or it was random circumstances lead them to certain people. And then they just feel this like burst of inspiration to pitch them
Yeah.
or to try and collaborate. And then it works out.
Yeah.
The power of connecting with other people and to put yourself out there. I really do believe it's a superpower.
I agree. And I will give credit to my mom because my mom has always been the one to tell me, say yes to everything you're invited to, even if you don't want to go. The night I went to that pop-up where LAROI performed, I didn't want to go. None of my friends were in town. I had no one to go with. And my mom was like, just go. And I was like, oh, fine. And look where I am now. So that, I think there's something to say, you know, getting out of your comfort zone, getting rid of letting fear control your life. Because if I did, I wouldn't have gone. I would have been like, well, I'll have no one to talk to, you know? So it's, you know, people deal with social anxiety and stuff like that. But I think once you break through it, you have to make a conscious effort to, but it's so worth it.
You kind of already answered my question about fear, but I want to ask it more directly anyway.
Yeah.
Can you recall a time that you were really fearful about something pertaining to your career, but you overcame it anyway?
Okay, well, we kind of talked about it, but I was really, really afraid of announcing to my followers that I was going to be charging $3 to $4 a month to help people get face value tickets, because I had a feeling I was going to get backlash for that, because, you know, fan accounts never really monetize. So being one of the first to do it is always scary. And I was like, I need to just do it. I need to post about it. And it did really well. So I'm happy I did. And I helped a lot of people get tickets, which is, you know, that's the passion. That's the piece of it that led me to doing that. That's why I wanted to help people. But I definitely was scared of doing it. I was like, oh my God, what if people unfollow me and hate me and think I just want money? Because that was not at all what I wanted. So that was one moment. But I feel like I deal with it all the time. Every time I go, you know, on a work trip and I'm around certain people or new people and I feel like I don't know what I'm doing. I've learned that people just truly fake it till they make it. And you think everyone knows what they're doing in the room, but they're thinking the same thing that you're thinking, which is, I have no idea what I'm doing. I'm just figuring it out as I go. So I think learning to fake it till you make it and just pretend like you know what you're doing until you actually know what you're doing, I think that works. And then, you know, when I started working with LAROI, I had never officially ran an HQ account. I had done like the more fan version of it, which is my Swifties for Eternity account. So it's like when you start anything, you have no idea what you're doing until you start doing it. And that goes back to what we said, which is, you know, practice makes perfect. You get less scared as you do something more and more.
And what do you think is next for your career? Like, is there something that's pulling you in a certain direction or exciting you at the moment?
There's a specific thing that's in the works that I actually can't talk about yet, but it's everything I do from here on out. I want to continue to follow the passion. And my passion will always be helping fandoms, because without fandoms, there's no artists. You know, none of that exists without us. We are the force that drives all of their success. So I just want to do whatever I can to make the fan experience better as we move forward and things evolve with social media and tickets and everything. So I think I'm just going to follow that and see what happens. But in terms of long-term thinking, I really don't think that far ahead, because I just think, wow, things have worked out so well, and I never could have planned for how things have evolved until now. So I kind of try not to think too much about what I'm going to be doing 5 years from now. It would be cool to one day build an agency of HQ accounts. That would be cool. So I don't know. I have a lot of floating ideas and some things in the works that hopefully will pan out. But yeah, I think I'll just always continue to follow the passion, because that's what I did, and that's what led me here.
And what has been the biggest life lesson you've learned so far?
I would say probably always staying true to yourself, you know? And I think I actually partially learned it from Taylor herself. You know, she's always, no matter, you know, what genre of music she goes to or whatever she does, she always remains very grounded in her roots and who she was. She has evolved, but she has never changed too much as a person. And I think I've tried to do the same thing. I think being authentic to who you were when you were younger and who you are now is the best thing you can do. And I think that also goes along with, you know, what makes social media successful, being authentic to yourself, because people can see through the bullshit. If you're faking it and you're just doing things that aren't true to yourself, people are going to know. They're not going to connect with you in the same way. So yeah, I would say my biggest lesson is be authentic to who you are and forget what everyone else is doing and kind of, you know, create your own path, and you don't need to follow the trends or what everyone else is doing, because you can start a new trend.
And for someone who is thinking of starting their own path, creating their own place in the world like you have, what advice would you give them that you wish you'd had when you were starting?
Ooh, that's a good question. I wish that I was told more in school that you don't have to just do what everyone else does. You know, go to high school, go to college, graduate, and then get a job where everyone's making the same amount of money, and then work your way up the corporate ladder. Like, that's what I was fed as a kid all the time. And I don't think I learned about being an entrepreneur until it happened to me very organically. So one thing like I'm going to teach my kids is, if you want to create your own path and do something different, something that isn't considered traditional, and isn't being, you know, taught at school, like, you can do that. Whatever you're passionate about, find a way to make it a job, you know? So I guess looking back, just off the top of my head, that would be the number one thing I wish I was told more, is like, you don't have to follow what everyone else is doing just because that's what people expect from you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well said. I love it. And I think that we're all kind of fed that narrative when we're growing up, that things have to be a very specific way, and stepping out of that is risky.
It's not safe.
Exactly. And I actually just interviewed somebody who, he started one of the largest toy companies in the world, the fourth largest. And he was talking about how, and I'd never heard anyone say this before, when people are about to start a business or a project, they will try to typically do like a pros and cons list. The issue with that is that you can identify potential problems pretty easily, but you can't almost ever anticipate the real upside. Mm-hmm. Like, could you have ever known what was going to come from starting that Tumblr account?
Never.
There's no way.
But I guess, yeah, the downside was I was spending a lot of time on my phone on social media.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I think that he calls it the inverse risk. And I agree with that, because if you feel passionate about something, whether it's going to work out or not in the end, right? Who knows? But you really are doing yourself a disservice to one day look back and ask yourself, what if? I would way rather try something, fail, and be like, hey, well, I gave it a shot.
Right. You learn from it. You grow from it. Think of all the things you would learn from launching a business that fails. You learn so much, and maybe it'll lead you to trying something else that you didn't think of, but doing it a different way, and that's successful. So, and if everyone thought that everything would fail, no one would be doing anything. Look at the amount of successful entrepreneurs out there. They're the ones who don't let fear and what everyone else is saying stop them from doing what they're passionate about, and stop them from having their own vision that other people may not see. You know, maybe they're ahead of everyone else in terms of their vision and forward thinking.
Well said. Yeah. And where is the best place where people can keep up with you and all of your work that you're doing?
Yeah, you can follow me on Instagram at Swifties for Eternity if you're a Taylor Swift fan, but if you're not, at Olivia Levin. And you can buy The Story of Us if you want to learn more about the Swiftie community and my story, wherever you buy your books, Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Target, anywhere.
Well, I'm going to include all of the links to your social media profiles and places where people can buy the book in the episode notes. So anybody who wants to go and check out Olivia and her book, you can easily do that by clicking below. And Olivia, if you could go back in time and offer your younger self one bit of advice, but specifically tailored to you, maybe back to the young girl who's just about to create that Tumblr account, what would you tell yourself?
Actually, can I ask you first what you would tell your younger self so I can get an idea of what kind of...
Ooh.
No one's flipped it back onto you
Not
before?
not this one. Very
it's
rarely.
It's a hard one. It's a hard one.
Very rarely do people ask me a question. It
Yeah.
happens and I'm always caught off guard. I think I would tell myself that the vision you have for your life is real. Actively work towards it.
Okay, that's a good one. That's a really good one. I would probably, and there were moments in my life where I let what others, would think about me get to me. But I would probably tell my younger self, do it, start the fan account. No one needs to understand it except you. That's probably what I would say.
I love it. Well, Olivia, thank you so much for taking the time to do this. This was so much fun. I really appreciate you coming on.
Thank you for having me. What a fun, deep conversation. I love it.